This first lesson for reconciliation prep focuses on the very first sin that entered the world, the original sin, right? The origin of sin in the world. And it's this story of Adam and Eve, the very first couple. They're the first human beings, right? So their bodies and souls, they're created in the image and likeness of God. They're made to know and love and serve God. And at the devil's instigation, they choose to violate God's commandments. Right? So in the context of this story, God's commandments is one crystal clear commandment. Don't eat from this one tree. And that's what the devil convinces them to do, right? By asking them, did God really say that you shouldn't eat from any of these trees? And then Eve responds with an answer that's sort of right, but not completely right, right? God didn't say anything about they couldn't touch it, but that's what Eve says, right? We can't eat it or even touch it. And then she thinks about it, she rationalizes it, she convinces herself that it's okay, she eats the fruit, she gives some to Adam, who is right there the whole time, refusing to guard the garden, which was his job, right? And this whole thing falls off the rails. But here's the point. The devil's response to sin is immediately Adam and Eve feel shame, they have to cover up, they make loincloths for themselves out of leaves, they look ridiculous, right? And they hide in a bush, try to hide from God. They feel shame. That is the devil's response to our sin. You're a bad person, you're a horrible person, no one would love you if they knew about this, God doesn't love you, he won't forgive this, you're just a bad person, you should hide and go away. That's the devil's response to sin, and that's all lies. God's response to sin that we see in this story is, he comes to Adam and Eve and he asks them, what happened? Where are you? And they're not willing to say what happened, and so he says, did you eat from the tree that I told you not to eat from? And Adam blames God, right? It's the woman that you gave me. And God goes and asks Eve, would you please admit that you did something wrong? Just tell me what happened so I can fix it. And she won't do it either, right? And so God's response to sin is he invites confession so that he can take it away. He's a good father. He's a good parent. He just wants us to admit when we do something wrong, say that we're sorry, so that he can forgive it and take it away. And in the context of this story, he promises a redeemer in the future. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, it's what biblical scholars call the first gospel, the proto-evangelium, where God is talking to the serpent and the woman, and he says, her seed, her son, is going to crush the head of the serpent someday. Someday, a son descended from Eve will crush the head of the serpent and take away this whole sin thing, right, and get rid of this whole sin problem. So God's response to sin on the one hand is invite confession, invite mercy, invite forgiveness, and he's on our side. He's going to help us. He doesn't abandon us after the sin in the Garden of Eden or today in your sin or my sin. He never abandons you, and there's no sin you can commit that is going to disgust God or make him say, you know what, you're not worth it anymore. The devil's response to sin is to say, you're not worth it anymore, right? And so that's important for us to keep in mind as we get ready for reconciliation. There's nothing you can say in the confessional that is going to make God love you less. There's no sin you can commit that will make God think you're not worth it. And there's no sin you can commit and confess in the confessional that the priest is going to say, you're an awful person, I can't believe you did that thing. Confession is 100% all about confessing as God invites us to confess in the face of sin, so that we can experience his love and mercy and come back into right relationship with him. That's what he wants for us all along, is a right relationship.